Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 224 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where you're going to Mordor and we're coming with you.
And just like Sam, we'll soon be in over our heads and drowning. But folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room. I'm Sean Marchese, the Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the Men of the West, who was hoping to be safely on his way without me to help him. And I'm actually quite happy to be Sam in this scenario. Alan Sisto.
Well, of course you are, because he's really the character that everybody cares about. I mean, they assume Frodo's going to get the job done, but what about poor Sam?
He's the hero of the book.
Yeah.
Ergo, I'm Sam.
Well, still, if it's a choice between you coming with me and you knocking holes in all my boats, you're coming with me, Sean. So,
all right, fair enough.
Today, though, we're going to ease our way back into the book by taking some time, as we do at the start of each book, to look back at The Lord of the Rings so far and review some of the major themes that we saw last season.
And then we'll take a look ahead to Book 4 and talk about some of the major themes and great moments that we're looking forward to in this coming season.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you joining us for the first time, well, here's when I say welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Tolkien's stories of Middle-earth, a few pages at a time.
That's right. We dive into the details, point out connections to other writings, talk about our favorite themes.
But we also make sure we have a lot of fun along the way. So we're glad you've joined us.
And we know you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get into the recap, today we're going to bring you a new segment for the new season. It's called Kingly Gifts.
And this new segment is all about Tolkien collecting. We're going to be sharing news, so you'll always know when an exciting new volume is coming out, publication history, notable editions, and general information for those of you who are starting to get into collecting or who are interested in it. Or for those of you who are looking for a kingly gift for the Tolkien collector in your life.
That's right. Now, I've been collecting for, maybe a little over a decade, not all that long compared to some folks. And I'm really excited for this new segment. It's something I've been thinking about for a number of years on the show. So We'll be bringing this segment back a few times this season. And every so often, we're going to bring in guests to join us to talk about their collections.
And we have a guest with us tonight. And there's no one better that I can think of to join us to start this segment than the guy who we have with us here today. He's been a friend of the Prancing Pony Podcast for many years now. He joined us for a quick live video appearance at Tolkien 2019. And you might say he's a dragon among collectors.
Indeed, you might. He's also the creator of the Tolkien Collector's Guide website, TolkienGuide.com. Now, if you're interested in collecting and you haven't signed up at TCG, you really should. There is a ton of information there for collectors, including news and informational resources, as well as incredibly helpful discussion forums.
And you don't have to take it from us. Take it from the Tolkien Society. They awarded Tolkien Collector's Guide the 2019 Tolkien Society Award for Best Website. And we're going to let him tell you all about the site in just a moment here.
Well, why don't we go ahead and just let him tell us all about it now? Let him talk. Jeremy Edmonds, welcome to the Prancing Pony Podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's truly our pleasure.
Absolute pleasure to have you on, Jeremy. And you've heard the show before, so you know the question that we ask everybody who comes on the Prancing Pony Podcast. So we're going to ask you now. When and how did you first discover Tolkien's work? What was it like for you, and what is it that kept you coming back?
Oh, it's a great question. I first was introduced to Tolkien by my parents' bookshelf. They had The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings from their college years. So these were 60s editions. Later printings of the first editions of The Lord of the Rings were what caught my eye with those Walter Lorraine cover art, the really kind of pastel-y browns and greens. I was just fascinated with those. Read them to death. I feel bad for my parents having reread them dozens of times and completely destroyed the dust jackets and well-worn the pages. I tend to be a rereader in general. I like to go back and read books fairly often for favorites. Like Lord of the Rings is usually an annual type read for me. But that's what got me started. And when I was, I want to say late grade school, maybe junior high, starting to earn a little bit of spending money and would never go to the library. Was always going to the bookstore. There was one on the way home from my summer job when I was probably around 15 years old, and I'd spend every paycheck there, like on the way home, just buying paperback books. And so the collecting bug has always been there for me. Mostly reading copies at that time, and then of course over the years turning into looking for rarer editions and things other than just words on a page. It's always become fascinating to me.
That's great.
So it sounds like Tolkien was maybe the gateway into collecting for you. Is that right? And if so, how did you take those first steps into collecting Tolkien?
Certainly one of the first. I've been a fantasy and science fiction fan for pretty much my whole reading life. I can't explain why, but I just
none of us can. But you're in good company. I promise.
It's just part of us, isn't it?
Exactly. But it was the first copies I bought myself of the Lord of the Rings were in the late 1980s. So they had the Michael Herring art. I don't know if you've seen those. They have like the Fabio looking Legolas on one
Fabio
cover.
Legolas?
Yeah, exactly. So
those were my first copies. Yeah.
Those were the ones that were out when I was buying my own books and disliked the covers. So when a new set came out, which I think the next one was Ted Naismith art was what they replaced those with eventually. And then it's, okay, then they changed the artwork again. And it's like, oh, I like those too. I should get that. And so cover art is probably the initial trigger that really got me into, having more than one copy of the same book, because there was something different. There was something pulling me into it that made it worth having and looking at. Reading was a primary driver. So with Tolkien, finding out that he had secondary works was fascinating, and trying to track those down because they weren't very popular. Certainly some of them weren't even published until the 1990s, when they were pulling out the deeper catalog. And then probably, I want to say late 90s, maybe around 2000 or so, finding out that Wayne Hammond had put a bibliography together that documented, because the web wasn't all that big in those days, as far as there was newsgroup chatter. It was great hanging out with people you met there, but nothing like the modern web that we're used to today. So finding that bibliography that just went into an incredible detail of editions and volumes and things you'd never heard of, and that just opened the floodgates of looking for material you never knew existed before, and hunting down catalogs and book dealers and book shows, and then finding other people who are interested and started exchanging letters. And to me, it's a community as much as it is a hobby. It's the people as much as the books or the items themselves that keep me constantly enjoying it and never wanting to stop.
I kind of feel like it always comes back to community within the Tolkien fandom, doesn't it? I mean, for us with this podcast, I mean, obviously the podcast started as a hobby for us, and obviously it's gotten a little bit big for its britches, but in a good way. But it's really the community that's kind of kept us going, hasn't it been, Alan?
Oh, absolutely.
That's exactly where the Tolkien Collector's Guide came from, was a place for those of us who were collecting and knew each other through email and some other websites that we had bumped into to have a permanent location. There was someone else's website. It was, I think, TolkienCollector.com at that time had just like a BB forum, the early days of forum software.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it got hacked 3 or 4 times, and they pulled the plug quickly on that, not finding it worth trying to maintain it. But the initial impetus was just, all right, we need a forum where we can all hang out. And so everything else about the Tolkien Collector's Guide is just built around that forum.
Wow.
That's great. And it's actually a perfect segue and kind of anticipated my next question, which was just, how did that happen? So tell us a little bit more about that. What year was it that you actually started Tolkien Collector's Guide? And I mean, it sounds like you already had some of the community in place, and it was just sort of about bringing them over to the new site. But tell us a little bit about maybe early days of TCG and then kind of how it grew from there.
I think we just celebrated our 15th year of being active this summer. It was, 2006 was when the first other members joined it. That's obviously younger than like the OneRing.net, which has had a longer forum and a long pedigree of excellent community that they've got going there. But there wasn't really much that was specifically collector focused, and it wasn't serving the needs of myself and half dozen or so others who were constantly trying to stay in touch and share news and things like that. So it started as just off-the-shelf forum software, a little bit of a content management framework. I've completely rewritten it over the years, but it was very lighthearted. Just, hey, here's a message board. Let's start sharing things. It's been personality driven the entire time in the sense that there's a core community of, I want to say 20 to 40 people. They've changed over the years. We've had people be there for 5 to 10 years and then fade out, stop collecting or have other interests or have other obligations come up, and new members are joining pretty much daily. It's a great place to lurk. There's no need to be an active poster, putting yourself out there, but there's constant communication and chatter and news sharing, a calendar that we have for upcoming events and book publishing and news along those lines. So I still love it. I'm still trying to improve it. And the little piece of my heart, I guess, is out there in that site.
Yeah.
You know what? We understand that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you do something like that for the community and you put yourself out there, it's definitely a very personal investment, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And to see a community come together around it. And,
yeah.
As you said, I really like the way you said that, Jeremy, the personality driven. I mean, the community really starts to define the project in a way, doesn't it? It becomes about the community. It becomes about a response to the community. And I think those of us who do it well, and I think, the three of us, I like to think we all do it well. We take our community into consideration, and we try to do something that'll make them proud while constantly trying to improve ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about what our listeners might find there at Tolkien Collector's Guide, but maybe talk a little bit about what you have for new collectors and what you have for experienced collectors. What sort of resources you have available for them? So
I'd say the worst part of the site is probably for absolute new collectors, just because of the way it's grown. And that's something that we're trying to address. It has a lack of like a beginner's guide bibliography of what you're looking for. There's a lot of that information there. It does have a wiki that has information organized, but it does not incorporate a lot of other websites that have excellent bibliographies. It wasn't meant to scrape and copy paste those. I think we're going to solve that at this point, because all of those other website authors are members of TCG and part of the community, and are always there and willing to answer questions. So I'm hopeful. We're kind of feeling around the edges of sort of a massive database that's able to be queried and works well with social media and other things. That'll make it a lot easier to figure out what you have and also figure out what you don't have and what you're interested in going to find. So it's a good place to start, but honestly, asking questions and getting to the people rather than talking to software is the best way to use the site.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The community is always going to be more responsive than a wiki or any other, online tool. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's like I said, 20 to 40 people who are on there who are active collectors who have been doing this for many, many decades each and probably own everything that is collectible out
everything. There. Right. Yeah.
One copy of everything. I'm thinking of, there's one or two things where there are, only a handful of copies known to exist.
So you think somebody out there, you don't have to confirm and certainly don't identify who, but you think somebody out there in your community owns Songs for the Philologist?
Yes, I am sure that probably more than one. I can think of maybe
more than
two
one
or three.
Of the dozen or so, or
of the few that are out there, a couple of them are going to be on
Tolkien
Collector's Guide for sure.
Of course they are.
Well, let's digress for a moment. There's
it's what we do.
Even more rare is the Sir Orfeo, which was a privately printed pamphlet in 1944, I think, where there's only known to exist about 5 copies, and 2 of those one's in the Bodleian, there's another library in Oxford that has a second copy. So really, there's only 3 copies in circulation.
Wow.
3.
That is truly amazing.
That really is.
One of those things that he printed up himself. He had it typeset. It was for one of the classes he was teaching at that time. So he probably handed out, maybe 5 or 10 to the students that were taking that class. And, only a few of them survive one of his draft copies, things like that. So it's
wow. Yeah.
I'm sort of shivering thinking
kind of
about,
blown away by it.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking of like the little pamphlets that some of my professors used to hand out like that. You know, just little things that they put together.
Self-published sort of. I printed this at the school mimeograph machine.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got a bunch of those on my bookshelf, and I'm just thinking like,
oh,
man,
wow.
I didn't have, Tolkien as a professor, but how cool. Just imagining like some of those old things that I have on my bookshelf. Like if my professor was somebody of the stature of Tolkien, man, how much money something like that could be worth, or how rare could it be?
I was going to say how rare it could be, because you're not going to get rid of it. I mean, that's what makes
that's
it so
true.
cool.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's me not being a collector talking, how much money it's worth. Right. But
no, it's worth talking about that, because of course that is a measure of rarity and, supply and demand. That's just an economic indicator, but it's certainly, many of us, at least, and I think we're going to get to this in a little bit here.
Yeah.
We don't collect for the increase in pecuniary value.
Absolutely.
They aren't investment vehicles for us.
Yeah.
I can certainly say they're not investment vehicles for me. I plan on handing these down to my son.
Sure. Yeah.
And
and I think that's actually a perfect segue into the next bit that, we want to talk about here, because I am not a collector, and yet I do have an account on the site. I look at it frequently. I'm a lurker. I think Jeremy knows that. I'm fascinated by collecting, and I have used the site as a resource. I've used it as a resource on the show before.
Yeah.
And I've posted one or two things, maybe a couple of comments, but I've read a lot, and I've tried to learn a lot, but I just haven't really stepped into collecting myself. I think there's just a lot of other things kind of going on for me.
Sure.
But I guess, Jeremy, for me and for people like me, talk to us a little bit about collecting in general. What does it mean to be a Tolkien collector?
There are so many ways to answer that, probably as many ways as there are people. In fact, I would consider you a collector, even though you don't consider yourself one, just because you have, numerous volumes. You had a purpose for getting them, so that there's a meaning to your collection or a theme. It's sized correctly for what you're trying to do right now, but that absolutely falls in the space of being a collector, if you will.
Because if you're not a collector, Sean, I'll give you an electronic copy of Parma Eldalamber on number 17 in exchange for the real one.
I mean, that's a good point. No, I mean, that's a good point. It actually kind of makes me feel good, but
that's right.
Yeah. I mean, I've got copies. I've got multiple copies. We answered this question on the show not long ago last season, right? Like I've got multiple copies of The Hobbit, multiple Lord of the Rings, multiple Silmarillions, and they all have a specific meaning for me.
That's right.
Yep.
They may not be the rarest things out there, or,
but like Jeremy said, that still means you're a collector.
Well, I'll take it.
Yeah. So maybe tell us a little bit about the different kinds of collectors. You said there are as many answers to that as there are people that are collecting, but you could probably lump them into some general categories or some broader kind of overviews. What are the different kinds of collectors? Maybe what drives those people to collect?
Absolutely. There's, probably similar to the way I started, a very easy way to consider yourself a collector is trying to find the words that Tolkien has written and published, right? You're having a copy of all the books that are printed and available, Farmer Giles and Roverandom, et cetera. It's, there's a pretty long list. The Tolkien Society has a good list of the works by Tolkien, and Fordrum, which is the Swedish Tolkien Society, has an excellent bibliography that goes through the minutia of what he's, every poem that he put into a college periodical, back in the 1920s, et cetera. It's all been documented as far as, people are aware at this point. So collecting those, even finding some of the rarer stuff, much of it has been reprinted.
Yeah.
So if you're just looking to read what Tolkien wrote, that is a potential theme to just go out and find more and learn more about his writings. Looking for different editions where, even in English or in the UK, to narrow it down specifically, The Hobbit has never gone out of print since 1937. Right. So there are hundreds of different formats, sizes, cover artists, illustrated editions.
Yeah.
So finding a favorite or two or four or a dozen
or 17. Right. Exactly.
So yeah, there are collectors. There's Hank. I think it's Brazine. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's the Hobbithunter in the Netherlands.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's got, I want to say, almost 800 different editions of The Hobbit from
individual,
worldwide.
Unique, no duplicate editions.
That is correct.
Wow.
Yep.
So we're talking different editions, probably different languages. There's probably a lot of different things that feed
cover
into
art, book club
800,
versions,
right?
things like that, right?
Absolutely. Yep. So he's very much focused on The Hobbit, and even being focused, every collector has oddities and outliers and digressions from the main theme.
So he might be focused on just The Hobbit, while others might be focused on maybe everything that Tolkien's ever written. Somebody else might want signed editions or first editions or a particular cover artist or whatever it might be that interests them. And for them, then that's what gives them the thrill of the hunt is finding that one piece to complete their collection, except that it's never complete. It's like Pokemon, right? Got to catch them all.
Exactly. I have a fairly robust international edition collection myself, and I do it just for cover art. I can't read anything but English, but I love having them. There's a friend of mine, Michael Everson, who runs Evertype. He's translating The Hobbit into minority languages or
oh wow.
And so Galatian and Hawaiian, and
wow,
they're fantastic. I've bought every copy, or one of each of the editions that he's come out with, mostly to support him. But they look fantastic on the shelf.
Oh, I bet
they repurpose Tolkien's original dust jacket design for The Hobbit, but Michael goes through and changes the runes to the language.
Oh wow!
Wow.
That's
so
awesome.
When somebody actually deciphers the runes per Tolkien's own description of them, they come out into their language. It's a transliteration. That's brilliant.
Wow. That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've touched on 2, maybe 3 types of collectors. There are, moving wider than books, there's, books about Tolkien, of course.
Yeah. Sure.
Scholarly writings, etc., fanzines and publications.
Right.
Fan fiction is a whole subgenre in and of itself. Ephemera, you have things like plays and musicals and movies. I knew a collector, she since stopped collecting, but back in the 2001 to maybe 2005 or so, she was collecting all of the movie-related advertising type materials. Your Burger King giveaways.
Yeah, the market. Yes. All the merchandising and the wow.
And there's
a lot of that.
That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of stuff.
Just documenting it. The spreadsheet she sent me of her collection was a collectible in and of itself. It's like, this is
I would imagine it would be. Yeah.
And that's another. I know a couple of people who just collect digital. They're just after the text. They don't want physical. They don't need it taking up space. Just finding, like you were saying, digital copies of fanzines or other publications and PDFs of, scholarly papers and materials like that. So it works for any budget. It works for any size living arrangement. It can change over time.
Yeah, you don't have to have a room dedicated to a wall of shelves to be a collector.
Yeah, you do.
When you talk about digital, I mean, all you need is a couple of hard drives, right?
You do, but you don't have to, right?
No, you don't have to. That was just me speaking. That's a personal.
I know, me too, man. My bookshelf is overflowing. I need a whole new shelf. Yeah.
Well, see, that's part of the reason that I won't step into it is because I am out of space and I need to purge some old books, like some non-Tolkien stuff that I don't need anymore before I have space for new stuff. And I think that's one of my excuses why I'm not getting into it more.
Well, I'm glad you recognize it for the excuse that it is, Sean.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so, I mean, it sounds like, and this is like remedial collector questions. So I'll let Alan ask the smart questions and I'll ask the newbie questions.
Give me a break.
No, man, this is more
since
your thing.
When do I ask the smart questions on this show?
since we're talking about this topic. But
fair enough.
I mean, it sounds like if I'm somebody who's looking to start building a collection, it's really all about just finding what it is that I'm passionate about and then going after that, right? So like if I'm passionate about the linguistic stuff and I want to hunt down every single Parma Eldalambron, which is going to be tough until Chris Gilson starts reprinting them.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? You just like start going after whatever it is that you're passionate about. Is that kind of a good way for folks to get started?
Absolutely. And it's never ending. And it's okay if your passion changes. And it's okay to, like you were saying, to have, a fixed dimension of, like, for example, I can fit so many linear feet in my room of bookshelves. And so if something new's coming in, something old has to go out. And does that mean my taste is changing, or do I need to double shelve them? Of course, briefly.
Briefly, yes.
you figure these things out. But a collection is really only defined by what you're interested in, I feel. There's no minimum size. There's no minimum value. It's not necessarily monetary at all. Collecting, I know people who just collect website articles and links. Of course, the community itself almost feels like collecting to me, of just meeting people and getting those relationships. And even outside of collecting, the scholars who've come onto like Tolkien Reading Day, I've done for the last 2 years, all came out of just this community and the sharing and the learning. So it's fascinating, and there's doesn't have to be anything physical, like actual in your hand, tactile items, to be a collector, or to be, on the hunt and getting that joy or that avarice feel of, finding something.
Honesty.
Avarice.
It's so refreshing. Yes.
Says the man who named himself after a dragon. Do we need to explain that one? Maybe we should explain
We probably should. I think we should explain that. Explain to us, if you will, being named after a dragon.
Well, obviously, the name I chose for myself is I spent a long time hunting through the history of Middle Earth, looking for a screen name or an epes, or there's different usages of it. But in Tolkien fandom, even going back to the late 50s, when it was early enough to not even really be documented. But in the sci-fi fandom of that time, people would take on, names from their favorite books or shows, etc. And so,
of course,
it still goes on today. I mean, of course, running a forum, most forums out there, even when you're Discord chats, etc., it's fun to, not just put your first and last name out there. You pick a persona, etc. So yes, dragon was what I was looking for, and not just Smaug or something off the top of the head. I had to go deep into the lore.
That's right. I want an obscure name.
That's right. So Uruk-hai the dragon. Literally, I think it's just dragon.
Yeah.
It was a dragon. It was a dragon, man.
Could have gone with Trogdor.
Just a dragon.
Didn't.
Yeah. So I don't know if I still use the avatar image much, but it's of this dragon. It's made of wood. The wings are about 3.5 feet tall. It was just a sculpture I found in some random art shop that sold like beads and incense and stuff. And it was one of those import wooden sculptures. So I've got this dragon. I've had it since, I want to say like 1995 or so, but it's awesome, and it's one of a kind. It's just a handcrafted thing. So that's beautiful. That's sort of my my avatar there, in the real sense, not just on a website sense, of this dragon that I have up on the top of one of my bookshelves.
Very cool.
That's great.
Very cool. Well, let's talk a little collecting 101. You're right. Of course, we don't have to spend a lot of money. You can collect non-physical things. I was really interested in this idea. You mentioned, collecting fanzines digitally, collecting fan fiction, collecting even web articles. But for people who are going to collect books, who are going to collect volumes, talk to us a little bit about some of the things that they're going to come across that they may not know off the top of their heads, like the difference between editions and impressions, maybe how to read a copyright page. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. So when you're looking at a book, it is, there's words that describe everything about it. In fact, I have the ABCs of Book Collecting is a book that goes through, and it's 300 pages of terminology just about books.
Oh, that's not intimidating at all, at all.
It's wonderful. But
yeah, it's like reading Hammond with the assistance of Anderson. It's like reading the bibliography of Tolkien's works, the descriptive bibliography. It's intimidating as can be. You realize I can't possibly collect all of this.
Yeah, or even remember all of it.
No.
And
so you've got a 300-page book on explaining how to collect books, and then you've got another 300-page book just listing all the things Tolkien ever published.
That's exactly right. So when you're holding a book, it was printed, whether it's print on demand or came off of a letterpress with handset type or some combination in between. But originally, what edition meant was from the same setting of type. So people would have these racks and they'd pull all their letters from the uppercase and the lowercase of all these little letters. That's where those come from. And then they would put them backwards on this big sheet, and then they would slap paper on it. They roll ink on it and slap paper on it, and that was where you got the printed page from. An edition would be the same setting of type. So they wouldn't tear that type down. They would just keep reprinting when people ordered more books. And that's where the word impression comes from, which is they've made these plates and they decided, the publisher would say, I think I can sell 500 of these. So the printer would run 500, sheets for all the pages and bind them up. And that would be the first impression of the first edition. And then if the publisher came back later and said, that sold really well, I need more, that would be the second impression of
I see,
the first
but it's
edition.
it's the same set of type, so it's the same edition.
Correct. Yep.
It's just a new impression.
That's right.
Printing.
And there's wiggle room in all of this. Like when you look at Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, there was a moment when the printer didn't know that the book would be successful, so they just put all the type away. And then when George Allen and Unwin came back and said, all right, we need a second printing, they had to scramble and they had to reset the type.
Oh, wow.
So
technically it was a new edition, but they just did it the same way.
That's exactly right. And they introduced so many errors that frustrated Tolkien for...
Yeah, so they tried to replicate it, but they were not successful.
So that's still technically called the first edition because it was meant to be the same setting of type, even though there were errors in it. But then for The Lord of the Rings is a good example of, in the 1960s, Tolkien actually rewrote portions of the book for purposes of copyright because the whole Ace controversy.
Yeah, the Ace.
But that's actually considered the second edition because it's new setting, new words, new type. Yeah. And then, of course, that went through impressions as well. And now you get into the digital age where nobody is manually setting type. It's all on computers. It's, the equivalent of laser printers pumping these things out.
But they're still listed as impressions if, let's say, a bookseller thinks I can get 1,000 of these sold, and so they do a print run of 1,000.
Yep.
Then what happens when they do more?
So the publishers are very good about indicating which impression you're looking at. I'll start with in the earlier Tolkien publications, which is George Allen and Unwin's method, because every publisher kind of had their own way of indicating editions and impressions. The way George Allen and Unwin would do it is they would actually list the first published in 1937. And then when they went back to the printers, they would have a second line of typeset that said second impression and the year. And then they would add third impression, fourth impression. So every time they went with the same set of type, they would keep adding a line in description. Then if you look at like Houghton Mifflin, the US publisher, had a different way of indicating which impression it was. Usually at the bottom of the book, like the Silmarillion or the later Hobbits that they were doing are good examples where it would say 13th impression in words, like not the number. It would just actually spell out 13th impression, 15th impression.
Okay.
So there's different methods that they do it, but they're very good at indicating which impression or which printing, those kind of words are generally used interchangeably, of an edition that you're holding in your hands. You look at the copyright page, you look for the latest year. They never put future years on the copyright page. So
no, that's true.
If you're looking at a copyright page and it says first published 1977, this edition 1992,
you're looking at a 92 edition of the Silmarillion.
Exactly.
Okay. So what about that row of numbers that are often at the bottom of the copyright page? They're usually backwards, right?
They can be forwards, backwards, and I've even seen them interleave.
Sometimes random.
Well,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah, I've seen that
10,
too, where there's
1,
like
9, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
you'll have
so,
like 10 and 11 on the ends, and then they'll get narrower in both directions, right?
Yeah, and not every publisher, but there are multiple ways of doing it. Typically, when they first typeset the book, so going back to manual type again, they would put all 10 numbers from 1 to 10 down near the bottom of the copyright page. And it's fairly common to put them 1 through 10, reading left to right. A lot of times they'll put them 10 down to 1. And then you'll also see I'll call it like the interleave pattern, where it goes 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and then 10, 8, 6, 4, 2.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of the method that they felt like doing. They all mean the same thing, but what you're looking for is the lowest number to tell you which impression you're looking for. So if you see the 1, it's a first impression. And then when they went back to press, they would just remove the number 1 from that plate.
I see.
And
Because they're not resetting all the types, so they just they leave all the other type there, and they just remove the whatever the lowest.
And by removing a single number, then it changes the impression. And
Right. Yeah. And that was one of the reasons why they did that weird interleave pattern, because that way the numbers always stayed centered on the page, because you took it off the left and then you took it off the right.
Then you take one off the right and you go back and forth.
So you didn't get this lopsided look where all the numbers sort of drifted towards.
That's right, because all the text on that page is usually center justified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why they do that.
Very interesting.
When they go to the 11th impression, then a lot of times they would just do 11 through 20, right? They just...
I see. They'll do the next batch of 10.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And do print-on-demand books even do that, or do they just say printed on demand year X?
Almost all the print-on-demand books just say when the material was copyrighted.
Okay.
There are, I'm trying to think in the Tolkien space, most of the ones that I have will indicate new editions, like the Evertype books, the Hobbit's translations, when he's made changes significant to the book, when it gets basically retypeset, even though it's digital. It will say, this is the second edition, will appear on the copyright page, so you know which version of the book that you're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
But another example is HarperCollins prints the History of Middle Earth.
Yeah, that's
in 13 volumes. It's available on demand. They know the books are desirable, and those editions are nice, so they've always kept them in print, which is nice because it doesn't sell many copies. I mean, when you're talking about like bestsellers. It's a vanity project, but one of the books is the Index, which is it combines the indexes of all the other 12, and it's a fantastic book. And it's been
it is.
I want to say 20 years, 15 years when they did that. I thought it was from 92 was when Helen Armstrong put that index together, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's still the same book. So I bought my copy maybe 7 years ago, and it's indistinguishable from someone who bought it 15 years. It's the same book. And it's just print on demand. The collectability of those is pretty much, you can buy one new anytime. So I guess if HarperCollins stopped doing the print on demand, there might suddenly be a bit of a market for those. But in general, those are for the information. It's worth having.
Right. Those are for people who want to collect the words and who aren't necessarily looking for something that's especially rare or unique.
Right. Right.
But there's nothing stopping a publisher from limiting a print on demand, just saying, I'm going to do 500 and then that's it,
Yeah.
Right.
If they did that, then there would, of course, be a larger market for that. There'd be, price increases on the secondary market because now they're out.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of rare versus, things you can get in the store easily enough, talk to us a little bit about what we see all the time now with these collector's editions or special editions of books. Talk about that in comparison to, say, truly limited editions. What are the differences that you're looking at there?
Yeah, so I'll speak primarily of HarperCollins. They're the ones generating the books around this market. The collector's editions that they're putting out they're nicer quality in general than the trade editions. So they typically have slipcases. They might have removable inserts like art. That was on the original dust jacket or something similar to that. And then those are printed in sufficient quantity that they think will sell. So they are collector's editions in that they're like the Easton Press is a good example from the U.S. market of higher quality, good materials. They look different. They look nice on the shelf, but they're not in any sense a limited edition, which would be where up front they decide on a number of copies that they're going to print, and then that's it.
And that's it.
HarperCollins has done those in the past with like signatures, like Christopher Tolkien, Alan Lee, Ted Naismith have all had true limited editions, usually 500, maybe 250 copies. They're very good quality.
Yeah.
They have a limitation statement in them.
They're usually numbered, aren't they?
Yes.
And I think you've got a few of those, right, Alan? I think I've seen some
I
pictures.
do. He mentioned these super deluxe editions, if you will. One of the pride and joys of my collection is a super special edition, whatever you call it now. My brain's completely lost it. A collector's edition of The Children of Houghton that is signed by Christopher Tolkien. I believe that was actually signed by Alan Lee as well because he illustrated it.
Yes.
And it's numbered to 500, and I think I've got number 66 of 500. And so they're individually numbered.
Right. That's where I'd seen that before.
Yeah. Those are truly limited editions in the sense that they tell you right up front, there's not going to be any more than this number. And everyone has a certain number. And of course, number one is going to be more valuable, but usually that's going to go to somebody, inside, somebody who knows someone. I imagine.
Yeah. In general, the numbers don't matter. Obviously, number one is probably, family.
Or the only one that would
publishing.
matter, right?
Yeah. So it's that I love that edition myself. The blue leather is just
it's gorgeous.
fantastic.
It is so beautiful. It is a stunning edition, no doubt about that.
So another thing that I see, and again, newbie here, but another thing that I often see is just sort of like different descriptions of the conditions of the book, either the book itself or the cover. Can you talk to us a little bit about what those different conditions are and, what are people generally looking for when they're going to collect a book?
Yeah. So the bookseller trade, which would be, it started from, organizations like the Antiquarian Booksellers Association, the ABA, or the American version, ABAA, have put together, standard terms that they try and unify on to describe books. And it starts with typically fine, although in modern era, people have added very fine on top of that. So start with fine, very good, or near fine, and then very good, and then good and fair and poor. And when you're thinking about collectability, anything below very good is a reading copy in my mind. It's not going to appreciate in value. The very good is going to have obvious signs of wear. So it might be aging, browning, a small closed tear, where no material's lost, but obviously a small rip, in the book somewhere. Those might, if there's not much going on, those might fall into the very good category. Near fine is going to have hard to spot blemishes, and then fine is going to be, basically new off the printing press, looks awesome. And then very fine is kind of leaking into the industry for, people are like, this has never been touched. Like, I don't know how it made it off the machine. It's it's in perfect condition.
Somebody got it and stuck it into a plastic bag and just left it there. Right?
Exactly. So those are kind of the terms that are out there, and you'll usually see those used twice on a book. And what they're referring to is the book itself and then the dust jacket.
I see.
The paper covering with nowadays it's as much a work of art as it is informational. They were meant to be disposable. They were just to tell you what you were buying, and then people threw them away. So dust jackets from 100 years ago, 150 years ago.
Extremely valuable.
Extremely valuable. But even for modern books, a dust jacket's 90% of what you're buying when you're looking at a copy of a book. If you're looking at a true first impression, first edition Hobbit without a dust jacket is probably in the market's hot right now. So I'm going to say maybe 10,000 pounds, so $15,000, maybe 20, somewhere in that range, and you put a nice fine dust jacket on it, and it's 10 times that. It's $150,000 book. Just because of the dust jacket. I mean, the book could be identical, but the dust jacket,
because that's what increases the rarity.
Exactly.
It's so much harder to keep a dust jacket in that sort of condition.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
And now when you see the two things side by side, they're always in the same order, right? Book/cover. So fine and near fine is telling me the book's in great shape. The cover's in pretty good shape, but just not quite as nice as the book.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, great. Well, I could ask another 1,000 questions, and we might actually have to have you back for Book Collecting 201. But
we
may really run long today, so we're gonna let you get going. But thank you, Jeremy, for joining us here today. It has really been a pleasure. And folks, one last time, we're gonna have Jeremy tell us where you can find the Tolkien Collector's Guide online.
It is at tolkienguide.com. You can also find me on social media at Tolkien Guide. I love answering questions. I'll point you to others if I don't know. It's all about helping out.
Yeah, no, and I would say as a person who's kind of new to all this myself, I would say that's 100% true. Not only Jeremy, but everybody on the site and everybody in that community, whether it's, folks on Twitter who are part of that circle or on other social media, are all just incredibly helpful. But Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us here today. And folks, seriously, go check out Tolkien Collector's Guide. And while you're there, tell them the PPP sent you. Maybe you'll receive a royal welcome.
Yeah, ripe meat off the bone. Things like that. Yeah.
I'm feeling hungry.
And with that, folks, we're going to return you to the podcast in progress.
Well, that was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Always great to talk to Jeremy. And
Definitely.
I'm looking forward to that segment coming back. It's going to be a great education for me. And I don't know, maybe I'll be starting my own collection before the end of this season. Maybe I already have. According to Jeremy.
I was going to say, I think we discovered you already have,
Yeah.
all the linguistic stuff. But do be careful. It is an addicting hobby. I got to tell you that.
I can already tell.
Yeah. My shelf used to be like 2 or 3 shelves of Tolkien stuff, and now it's the entire shelf, all 7 shelves. So, yeah.
Well, we learned a few temporary space-saving techniques in that segment.
We did, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we dive back into the book, Sean and I are really proud to welcome back Mythology Candles here to the PPP. We know that you really like their products, and we want to give you a deal on their new stuff, so be sure to take a listen.
Mythology Candles, now that's mythology with an I-E, not a Y. They're on a quest to add adventure to everyday life through their unique scents. Made with fantasy fans in mind, each candle provides an atmospheric immersion and is designed to set the scene for watching your favorite movie, reading a novel, or enjoying a game night with friends.
So for Tolkien lovers, they have a dedicated tale-inspired collection to drop you right into Middle-earth with everything from the Ranger, which smells like trodden leaves and war-beaten leather, to the cherry tobacco scent of Wizard's pipeweed, and the spicy cinnamon and sweet vanilla you'll find in Breeze Spice Market.
Oh, that is one of my personal favorites, I have to say.
I know.
Yeah. And in a new limited edition this fall, Mythology Candles has released their Mystical Autumn collection, which draws on our favorite autumn folklore and mythology. From the werewolf-inspired scent Blood Moon Sky that smells like cherry wine and musk, to the spiced pie crust of Gaelic Feast. Each scent is blended to be a portal in a jar, transporting you to another realm.
All Mythology candles are handmade in the USA with eco-friendly coconut wax, crackling wooden wicks, and pure natural fragrances, so they're clean burning and pet-friendly. And best of all, they have an exclusive discount for Prancing Pony Podcast listeners to get 10% off their purchase. All you have to do is type in Gimli 10, all one word, at checkout. That's Gimli 10.
So if you're looking for something extra to set the perfect atmosphere for your mood, check out Mythology Candles. Once again, that's spelt with an I-E instead of a Y. mythologycandles.com, or find them on social media at Mythology Candles.
One last thing. We want to make sure you know that when you finish listening to this episode, the talk continues all night long at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
That's right. Our amazing listener community keeps the conversation going in all of our social media spaces, from our common room on Facebook to our Reddit community, Twitter, and more.
On Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast and be sure to follow the page and join the group for some great discussions.
And you can find us on Reddit at r/PrancingPonyPod. And we're also at Prancing Pony Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
And now let's dive back into The Lord of the Rings with a quick look back at the story so far.
Yes, indeed. I am excited for this season.
Oh, yeah.
As we've said before, we are going to be taking you through Book 4 this season. That is the second half. No, not quite half, but you know what I mean. The second part of the Two Towers.
The second 40%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe not exactly. You know what I'm just going to be quiet. I'm just going to be quiet now.
The approximate,
yes,
we know.
Now, we covered a lot of the history of the composition of the Two Towers in our introduction last season, and you can go back and give episode 181 a listen again if you need a refresher on some of that stuff. But it's worth remembering that Tolkien spent most of 1942 writing Book 3, which is, of course, what we covered last season, all the stuff with Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli and Merry and Pippin.
Right. But by December of that year, Tolkien started losing his motivation. According to Hammond and Scull's Lord of the Rings, A Reader's Companion, as well as Humphrey Carpenter's Letters volume, Tolkien wrote to Stanley Unwin on December 7th, wondering if it was, quote, of any use, other than private and family amusement, to endeavor to complete the sequel to The Hobbit, meaning The New Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. I have worked on it at intervals since 1938. All such intervals, in fact, as trebled official work, quadrupled domestic work, and civil defense have left. It is now approaching completion. Not quite.
Yeah, that's what he thought, at least.
Yeah.
And at that point, he had just written the chapter that we now know as the Palantir.
Right.
The last chapter we covered last season. Now, of course, in hindsight, we know that he was only about halfway through it by that point.
Yeah.
But he really did think it was approaching completion. He thought he was about 6 chapters from the end. And so he did what a lot of people would do. He stopped working on it for over a year.
My kind of guy.
Yep. It's like, I'm almost finished this.
I'll knock it out next year.
Yeah, exactly. But he stopped working on it for over a year, and he didn't pick it up again until the spring of 1944.
Yeah.
Which we know because he wrote to Christopher that April saying that he had started to work on it again.
Now, interestingly, it seems to have been causing him some grief. In that letter, which is number 58 in Carpenter's volume from April 3rd, he said that he was doing some painful work on the chapter which picks up the adventures of Frodo and Sam again, but he doesn't give us any more information on why it was painful.
That's right. And I think we speculated last season that maybe it was because the Frodo and Sam storyline was so close to his own war experience. I mean, of course, that's just our speculation. There's really nothing to go on. Maybe he was just having trouble figuring out how to get them into Mordor. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, one cannot simply walk there.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But whatever the reasons, according to Hammond and Scull, it was actually Christopher's enthusiasm for the story while he was away training with the Royal Air Force in South Africa and the interest of C.S. Lewis that kept Tolkien going.
So another huge thank you to Christopher then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who knows if this book would have even gotten finished.
I know.
If it weren't for his interest.
Boy, I don't even want to think about that, but yeah.
I know.
Now, speaking of Christopher, Tolkien actually wrote about 24 letters and airgraphs, which are, basically air-mailed telegraphs or, high-priority letters to Christopher in April and May of that year, 1944. And in each one, he reported his progress on the composition of Book 4. In his May 31st letter, Tolkien reported that he had finished the last 2 chapters of Book 4 and read them to C.S. Lewis. It seems he wanted to get them all done before finals.
I can understand why.
Oh, yeah.
Not a teacher myself, but I know enough teachers to know that it's really, really tough.
Get it done before finals or it doesn't get done. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's really fascinating. He takes almost a 1.5 year break in his writing. But then when he gets back into it, he writes basically 10 chapters in 2 months.
That is crazy
That's
intense.
Impressive. That is
Can
impressive.
you imagine us writing an entire, that would probably be 2 seasons worth then. Well, no, 10 chapters. So, okay, that would be us writing an entire season in 2 months.
Yeah.
Of episodes. We can't do it. No.
I don't know how you would do it and still have a family.
No, or anything.
And a day job because he's getting it done before finals.
I know. That's what's crazy. He does this while he's still teaching and maintaining a family and doing all, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible stuff. I mean,
it really is.
The man was a machine.
Yeah.
When he had to be. You see him having these fits of inspiration and just writing feverishly. And then I guess that's the way to do it. Back and forth,
I guess so.
Power through, take a long break.
Take a long sabbatical, come back. Yeah. Fresh mind. Right.
Pretty amazing.
Wow. Well, still, about halfway through that stretch, May 6th, he wrote letter 66 to Christopher, which we've read from before and we're sure you're going to remember. He says this: a new character has come on the scene. I am sure I did not invent him. I did not even want him, though I like him. But there he came, walking into the woods of Ithilien. Faramir, the brother of Boromir. And he is holding up the catastrophe by a lot of stuff about the history of Gondor and Rohan, with some very sound reflections, no doubt, on martial glory and true glory. There has been a battle with a monstrous Oliphant, the Mamuk of Harad. And that is how he spelled it at the time. Mamuk, not Mumak, included. Mm-hmm. And after a short while in a cave behind a waterfall, I think I shall get Sam and Frodo at last into Cirith Ungol and the webs of the spiders. Then the great offensive will burst out.
Well, that sounds like a very exciting synopsis.
Doesn't it? I guess
That's
we're done
a book
here.
I want to read.
We'll just move on to book 5 now.
There's an elephant and webs of spiders. Oh, it's going to be great.
Man. Yeah,
But of course, that great offensive bit, that's going to be for next season.
that's true. Yeah.
Now, it seems that the process of drafting these new chapters required Tolkien to go back and redo a lot of the outlining and story sketching that he had done before. On May 14th, now this is letter number 69 in Carpenter's volume, he told Christopher that the whole thing has grown so large in significance that the sketches of concluding chapters written ages ago are quite inadequate, being on a more juvenile level. And on May 21st, he gave his son a little bit more detail. He said, "All that I had sketched or written before proved of little use, as times, motives, etc. have all changed. However, at last with very great labor, and some neglect of other duties," I would love to know what those were.
I know.
"I have now written or nearly written all the matter up to the capture of Frodo in the High Pass, on the very brink of Mordor."
His honey-do list has gotten really long, I suspect.
I'm sure I'm sure Edith was just like standing there waiting like, "Are you done yet, honey?
Yeah.
Honey."
We've got some things you need to take care of. Still, Tolkien managed to get through it, probably by pulling an all-nighter, and then didn't get any more work done on it over the summer, aside from making some typescripts of the new material that he'd written.
That's right. And as for what happened next, well, we'll have to wait until this time next year when we start on book 5.
All right, so we've talked about the composition of this next part of the tale. Now it's time for us to do a quick recap of the story and themes so far. And this one's going to be a little different.
That's right. Normally we'd recap the previous book for you. But with book 4, of course, we're picking up with Frodo and Sam, whom we didn't see in the previous book.
That's right.
So we're going to have to do a recap of book 2 to remind you what Frodo and Sam had been through when we last saw them.
And then we'll do a recap of book 3, which we covered last season. Not because you need it to refresh your memory on the story, but because we think it'll be informative to compare and contrast the themes that we saw in the last book with the ones we're looking forward to in this one. So Sean, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Sure. And folks, remember, this is a Prancing Pony podcast recap. We're generally assuming that you know the story, so we're really focusing primarily on the themes and tone here.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw that the theme and the tone of The Lord of the Rings darkened very early on. You know, the world of the Silmarillion, the Black Riders, and the Necromancer of Dol Guldur, all that stuff quickly intruded on what started out as a simple sequel to The Hobbit, and it intruded on it very early on. Even in the midst of all that Shire Arcadia, and once again, I feel like I have to thank Wayne Hammond and Christina Scull for that word.
Absolutely.
There was an ever-present sense of danger, and that sense, of course, is only increased as the story's gone on.
That's right. Now, theme-wise, the early arc of Frodo and Sam gave us a lot of fate and free will, as Frodo wrestled with his role in the events playing out. Not only when he left the Shire in Book 1, but also as he made up his mind to go to Mordor in Book 2, twice, at Rivendell initially, and then, of course, at Parthgalen.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget Gandalf's words that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and that Frodo was meant to have it, which is a sign to us that Gandalf sees the hand of Providence at work, which we could call fate.
That's right. But Frodo still has to exercise the free will to do what must be done. Now, we saw that in the Council of Elrond as well, as we learned about the difference between fate, which is Ilúvatar's will as it is played out and perceived by those who are actually in Arda, and the free will of people in the world, the ability to, as the Silmarillion says of men, shape their life amid the powers and chances of the world beyond the music. Really, to put it another way, put it the way Gandalf says, it's our responsibility to do what we can with the time that is given us.
Very well said.
Thank
I
you.
like that. We also saw another one of our common themes very early on, hope and despair.
Oh, yeah.
We saw that one at least as early as the Barrow Downs. Remember when Frodo almost gave in to despair and abandoned his friends to die, but he didn't.
That's right.
And we learned that Bilbo and Gandalf believed him to be the best hobbit in the Shire.
Mm.
That hope and despair theme continued to play out through Book 2, with Gandalf's death, of course, and then the battling forces of hope and despair within the Fellowship.
That's right.
I mean, right up until the breaking of the Fellowship, really, when we start to see Aragorn kind of have some moments of near despair, right?
Oh, yeah.
But he keeps on doing what needs to be done, and, well, we saw how well that worked out last season.
That's true. And don't forget Lothlorien, where Galadriel and Celeborn gave us lots of opportunities to consider the interplay of hope and despair, the fighting of the long defeat.
Yeah. And speaking of those two opposite extremes, we saw a lot of themes from our two essays at opposite extremes.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, I'm talking about Beowulf, the Monsters and the Critics, and On Fairy Stories.
That's right. From the Shire as the little circle of light surrounded by darkness, to Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin going out to do battle with the monsters, which they did quite literally in Book 2.
Yes, they did.
Now, that idea of the long defeat that we mentioned is also right out of Beowulf, the Monsters, and the Critics.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed then that Lorien itself was a circle of light. But there was also lots of light in the vein of On Fairy stories, including some mini eucatastrophes from Gildor and the Woody End. You remember how close one of the Black Riders was to
That's right.
overcoming them?
They arrived just at the right moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. To, of course, Tom Bombadil, saving them from Old Man Willow and setting them on their way and then saving them again from the Barrow-wight.
Yep. And we also had some On Fairy stories themes in that deep fairy resonance of Lorien. I mean, Lorien is the heart of elfendom on Earth.
Oh, you have to say that the way Haldir does in the films, right?
The heart of elfendom on Earth. Even though it's Aragorn who says it in the book.
I know.
I should do it in my Aragorn voice, but...
No, but yeah, there's something about...
I know, there's something about the way Haldir does
Haldir.
it. I know. But think about all the recovery and escape and consolation that the Fellowship found there in Lorien.
Oh, yeah.
After the traumatic events of Moria. Gandalf
Absolutely.
dying.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And that's another example of the Beowulf, Monsters, and the Critics contrast with the On Fairy stories contrast, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We have that Beowulfian moment where Gandalf sacrifices himself.
Right.
And then we have
the recovery in Lorien for those who survive. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, of course, not surprisingly, given the name of the volume, in books 1 and 2, we saw lots of Fellowship moments, which one can easily expect. Frodo and Bilbo, especially in Rivendell. And then, of course, the 4 hobbits in Crickhollow sticking together through thick and thin.
Oh, man, there's so much hobbitry and whimsy in those moments.
Yeah.
They're joking around. The 4 hobbits, they prop each other up like soldiers in a trench. You know,
Boy, there's just
so much love and fellowship between those guys. And it's not just them, is it?
No, it's the members of the company as they get to know each other in book 2. Yeah. Especially Legolas and Gimli.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we saw a lot of the ring at work. That's one of our classic themes from books 1 and 2. We saw it mostly on Frodo in Fellowship of the Ring, but we saw it on others as well. Obviously, we see it on Bilbo when he has trouble leaving Bag End at the very beginning of the book. We see the ring at work on Aragorn when he's tempted at the Prancing Pony.
Oh, that was a moment.
We see the ring very much not at work on Tom Bombadil.
That's right.
That's a wonderful reminder that there are some who can't be touched by the ring's evil. You know, it's like there are some things that cannot be corrupted.
That's absolutely right. And then, of course, we saw the ring at work on Galadriel when she had her, reactor meltdown moment.
Yes. In place of a dark lord, you would have a queen.
That's impossible to unimagine that or unsee that, I'm afraid. Yeah.
It's a spectacular scene cinematically. I know it's very different from the book. And
it is very different from the book. Yeah.
I like the understated scene in the book, but it's a cool scene in the movie, I have to admit.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
And of course, when we're talking about the ring at work in book 1 and book 2, we can't forget poor Boromir. You know, we talked about this a lot in episode 222. A lot of our clips revolved around Boromir's fall as a result of the ring and, you know, succumbing to the temptation.
Yeah.
And what happened, but how he ultimately was able to redeem himself before the end.
Yeah. And that is so important. I absolutely love that. It makes his character, you struggle liking Boromir at times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he is kind of bullheaded. He's very arrogant, very prideful.
Yeah.
And it's the redemption that brings him full circle. And all of a sudden he becomes somebody that you just really identify with. You can fully understand what it's like to succumb, to give in and to be weak.
Yeah.
But then to do the right thing is just amazing.
Because who hasn't succumbed to some temptation that they wish they hadn't?
Of course. At some point, we've all done things we regret. Hopefully not threatening to kill somebody half your size for a piece of jewelry, but yeah.
I mean, there was that one time in high school, but you know.
There was nobody half your size in high school, Sean. Don't tell me that.
That is absolutely true, unless you're talking about in the waist.
Oh, wow. Well, speaking of the death of Boromir, of course, that was also the last time we saw Frodo and Sam. You know, Sam losing track of Aragorn, who himself was looking for Frodo near Amon Hen, the little chickens. I'll always think of that now. That beautiful moment when Sam remembers, though, that his strength isn't in his legs, it's in his knowledge of Frodo. That is a fellowship moment, isn't it?
That is a huge fellowship moment. Honestly, I think that whole last sequence in the breaking of the fellowship is so much fellowship. You got Sam catching up to the boat. Remember, it looked like it was sliding down the bank all by itself, but of course it had an invisible Frodo in it.
Yeah, that'll do it every time.
And then who can forget Sam's actions? Jumps into the river, goes under, and then he's pulled up by Frodo, and then they have this debate. And
yeah,
if I can borrow a phrase from Akalabeth, and I know from the Bible ultimately, Frodo kind of hardens his heart at first, doesn't he?
He does. You're right.
Absolutely, you are not coming with me. But then his heart lightens as he realizes that he knows that Sam really will stay with him through thick and thin.
That's true. He has no doubt at all.
That's right. And I think that's the most exciting thing to me as we're about to go into book 4 is seeing that friendship develop, because they are friends all throughout the book. But early on, there's definitely a master-servant relationship there. And it's not like that ever really goes away. There is definitely a master-servant relationship through to the end. But I don't know. I feel like Sam sort of becomes more Frodo's equal as they go.
I think so too. I think we see that. We see Frodo recognize that in that wonderful moment when he talks about how, Frodo wouldn't have gotten far without his Sam. We're talking about people writing the story in the future.
Right.
Frodo recognizes how important Sam is to the story.
Yeah.
Theirs is probably one of them, other than Aragorn and Gandalf, theirs is probably one of the friendships that's most developed before the story starts.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, I guess like Merry and Pippin or something like that, but
yeah, Merry and Pippin. But even Merry to Frodo and Pippin to Frodo, we see Merry and Pippin kind of isolated on their own in the sense that the two of them are friends, but we don't necessarily see that they're super close with Frodo or super close with Sam.
Right.
So yeah, you're right about that. But the Frodo-Sam relationship is already a friendship to begin with. And so I think as it matures, we start to see more nuance to it, more detail, more richness. And then this whole book, because it is exclusively Frodo and Sam for the whole story, really. Sure, Gollum's in there and Faramir's in there, but the narrative never leaves Frodo and Sam like it leaves
Merry and Pippin for a couple of chapters. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we see a lot more of that being developed, and I think you're absolutely right. He does start to see Sam more as his equal, and we as the readers do too.
I think so, and I think what we'll see as we get into book 4, I know we're supposed to be saving our look ahead to book 4 for later, but folks will just have to get a little early taste.
It's the way it is.
Yeah. What I think we'll see that the few other characters that do appear in book 4, and it's really basically like Gollum and Faramir.
Pretty much.
Unless you want to count Shelob.
Shagrat and Gorbag, I guess.
Yeah, a couple of rangers, But Gollum especially, he's there to kind of be a foil for Sam.
Yeah.
And illustrate Frodo and Sam's friendship and the changes going on in it, and to provide some friction there. Yeah. So it's all very much, at least Gollum, his role narratively is very much to help drive Frodo and Sam's friendship forward in a way. And so I think that's going to be really interesting to dive into the way Tolkien uses that kind of triangle between the three of them.
That's a very good point.
And then when Faramir comes in right at the moment Gollum leaves, he kind of steps in and he's the third person. So there's going to be some interesting social dynamics with a very small group. And I think that's going to be fun to dive into.
That will be. It'll be a lot more intimate than book 3 was.
Yeah.
And I know that for some people, there are some out there who maybe like book 3 more for that reason. I know I tend to like book 3 a little bit more than book 4, but I am excited to take that closer look and to really dive into that friendship between Frodo and Sam, and to see all the various tensions that come and go as they deal with Gollum, and then with Faramir, and then with the threat of Shelob before we even know who she is.
Yeah.
I almost said Ungoliant, but
don't want
to give her too much credit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's going to be great. And I'm with you. I love book 3 because I love just the epic scope of it all. And of course I love the Rohirrim.
Right, exactly. Anytime you can get Old English involved, you're all over it.
Exactly. But book 4 is a very different kind of story. And I think it's going to be really cool to give it the Prancing Pony podcast treatment. And because it is so much about friendship and fellowship, if we want to keep using that word, I think that's really interesting because, we talked about this way back in book 2, the idea that maybe fellowship is one of Frodo's shields or protections against the effects of the ring.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I wondered maybe early in our season on book 2, whether that was kind of keeping him protected when he's with the fellowship, Corey Olsen has that phrase spiritual armor that he likes to use. And I wonder if fellowship is almost like a kind of spiritual armor for Frodo against the ring. Obviously it's ultimately not sufficient.
No. not at the end of the day.
No, but I think it might protect him somewhat, at least for a long time.
Yeah, it delays the onset, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it.
Well, that takes us up to book 3 and last season, where we saw the themes shift as the storyline split, like we just talked about. And for example, not a whole lot of ring at work moments in book 3.
Nope. No ring, no work.
That's right.
But, I mean, it's not completely absent, right? I mean, we do see the ring at work on Saruman, kind of indirectly. It's not like we see him, like, reach out to grab the ring or anything.
No, but remember the ring's effect on Grishnak when Pippin pretended to have the ring. Oh,
that's right. Yeah. So the ring is definitely still very much a force at work in the world in that part of the story. Not a lot of fairy moments in book 3 either. No. You know, the Rohirrim don't hold with all that golden wood, elvish magic stuff.
But the Ents do. And they, of course, are creatures of fairy themselves. So
that's true.
Those moments. And then we got a lot of on fairy stories thematic moments as well. There was the eucatastrophe of Merry and Pippin coming to Fangorn.
Yes.
The eucatastrophe and Spibimi of Gandalf coming back from the dead and his healing of Theoden. By the way, I should, because this is the first episode of the season, really.
Yes, you should.
I should make sure we explain for new listeners what Spibimi is. That is our shorthand way of saying, shall prove but mine instrument, which is a line from Ainulindale in the Silmarillion that speaks to Iluvatar's ability to take the circumstances that have happened in the world and still turn them in a way to accomplish what he intended. So in this case, Gandalf coming back from the dead, that was definitely some Spibimi there.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, one easy way of looking at it is anything evil can be turned to good.
Right.
And that's definitely what happens with Gandalf coming back. Also, there's a bit of Spibimi and eucatastrophe with Pippin finding the Palantir. Now, we haven't really had time to see that play out just yet and see exactly what that prevented.
Right.
But we certainly will in a year or so. And I think we hinted at a little bit of it in our last episode last season.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it. Yeah.
There's also, and while we're talking about on fairy stories, there's also just on kind of the fairy and fairy tales aspect of that essay.
Yeah.
There's that incredible exchange between Aragorn and Éomer about legends walking around on the green earth.
Yes, that one even made it into our 222, didn't it?
It did, and that's why I'm thinking of it, because we talked about both on fairy stories, which I was thinking of on fairy stories, and then you brought out Mythopoeia, which, wow, that's very much, Mythopoeia is almost like the poetic complement to on fairy stories.
It really is. It's got a lot of the same points, makes a lot of the same points, I should say. Yeah. But on the whole, really, book 3 was as many on fairy stories moments as there were. It was more a Beowulfy book, wasn't it? I mean, the Rohirrim made sure of that.
I mean, you got a bunch of Germanic warriors walking around speaking Old English. That's feeling pretty Beowulfy.
That is indeed.
But even the Ents had their Beowulf moment. Remember them marching to their doom and that they're doing what has to be done. They don't expect to come out of it alive. They think they are going to their death, but they do it anyway because it needs to be done. And we can't talk about Beowulf in book 3 without talking about Helm's Deep.
No, we cannot. That is the classic Beowulf moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, the circle of light, the monsters closing in around you. You've got what looks like certain defeat, but you've got the king, Theoden, riding out because he needs to do it.
To make such an end, right? I mean, I know that's the way the film says it, but I believe that's a line, an end worthy of song is, I believe, the line from the book.
I believe that is it, Yeah.
And boy, that's a Beowulf moment. And then you still get an OFS moment, though, with the arrival.
Because you got the eucatastrophe of Erkenbrand and Gandalf arriving. Yep.
Yeah. A lot of that contrast with, the despair, the complete loss of hope. It is all over. We're gonna die.
Yeah.
Game over, man. Game over.
Game over, man. Game over.
And then for some reason, game isn't over,
No.
Which is pretty amazing.
Game keeps going.
Yeah.
Continue. 10, 9, 8.
Quick, give me another quarter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, we did see those amazing Beowulf moments and those amazing on fairy story moments. But just like in book 2, we saw a lot of great fellowship moments, especially the bonding of Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli in those early chapters.
It's some of my favorite stuff in that book, in the whole of The Lord of the Rings, honestly. I still remember reading the book for the first time, and the stuff with the three hunters, just like, oh man, this is it. This is. I was loving the book before, but that was the moment when I knew this was my new favorite book. Forever.
Yes.
And you've got them hunting for Merry and Pippin. You've got the reunion between all of them later in the Road to Isengard, Flotsam and Jetsam.
I love that moment. And then Aragorn and Gimli's friendships with Éomer, which Gimli, who threatened to kill him, but ends up being his friend, and in a great way. I love the ribbing they give each other and the camaraderie that they show.
Yeah.
And of course, Aragorn and Éomer, let's draw swords together. It's just yeah.
And of course, Gimli and Legolas. I mean,
that's rich.
The moments with Treebeard and I mean, it just
Merry and Pippin
really
and
amazing
Treebeard,
stuff.
for instance. I mean, there's a friendship that none of them expected to have.
Yeah, right. And honestly, the Ents themselves, there's a lot of interesting fellowship stuff because we see how they're a community unto themselves. They have this kinship with each other, and they have the similarities between themselves. They all have
as different as they are, right? I mean, they all
as
look
different
like
as
very
they are. They
different
have
trees.
the same mysterious eyes, right?
Yeah.
But they also are very different from each other. Some of them have a kinship with the trees they shepherd. I mean, remember Quickbeam's Lament for the Rowan Trees.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's fellowship. Again, fellowship is just all throughout book 3.
It really is.
And of course, we get a lot of fate and free will stuff too. There's all the stuff with Theoden. I mean, obviously, we know that these are great events. These are things that are fated to be, and we can say with some certainty that Theoden is fated to ride out and be a part of the War of the Ring. But
boy, he still had to do what he did. You're right.
He still has to do what he did. He still has to make.
He
the
had
choice.
to choose to accept Gandalf's counsel. He had to listen and accept that.
That's right. And that's why the book is so powerful in the way that it requires Theoden to take agency and accept Gandalf's counsel.
Yeah, as opposed to the exorcism.
Yeah, and again, I feel like I apologize for this every time we compare the books to the movies, but I'm saying it only because I think it's really important that the book makes it play out the way it does. Theoden actually has to make a choice.
Yeah, I don't mind the cinematic changes that they made, but when it's
a super cool scene. It's a cool exorcism scene.
Oh, it really is. Yeah,
but it does kind of change the core of the original.
Down, Damien.
Right.
Yeah.
Bring me an old priest and a young priest.
Yeah, it is a great scene, but when the film changes the themes, it is easy to kind of point that out. And again, we're not bashing on it. We're just saying, hey, be aware of the book themes here because they are different.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, one theme that the movies did pretty much nail is the whole fate and free will of Treebeard and the Ents. They are instruments of nature's wrath. They are part of the music. They're part of fate. They're agents of Yavanna.
Yeah.
But they still have to make the choice to do what they're meant to do. And if it weren't for Merry and Pippin kind of shaking them out of their complacency.
Hundreds or thousands of years of complacency at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of inertia to overcome in that sense.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. They would not have done what they did if they hadn't, made that choice. And it wasn't an easy choice for them to make.
And it was a choice they made together. Going back to the fellowship moments you said just a moment ago with the whole Entmoot.
Yeah.
Treebeard is the general leading them to war. It was the Ents as a people.
As a group, making a decision to do this together. Yeah, you're right.
Of course, we also saw a lot of hope and despair, right? We saw Boromir's redemption after seeing his death at the end of book 2.
Right.
And then we got a lot of hope with Aragorn, quite literally, whose name is Estel.
Yeah.
So much of that, again, he started out in a dark place, really questioning himself about what had happened in the attack and what he should do. But once he made a decision, he stuck with it.
And he found his mojo in sort of leading the three hunters.
Absolutely.
He doubted himself so much, and he kind of doubted his decision making.
Yeah.
When the fellowship broke.
Yeah.
And he finds it, and he kind of finds his confidence, and he's able to maintain hope through everything that comes right up to Helm's Deep and beyond.
Well, speaking of Helm's Deep, that is another humongous hope and despair moment, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, again, going back to the circle of light, just hold out hope. You don't know.
Yeah.
What's the line from Gandalf?
That despair is for those who see the end beyond all doubt.
Thank you.
And really, how many of us can really see the end beyond all doubt?
Not a single one of us.
So never give up.
Yeah.
Never
surrender.
Your Monte Cristo sandwiches are very popular. Oh, man.
Oh, man.
I love that movie.
It's been a long time since I watched it.
They're miners, not miners. Just so many great moments.
It is.
Oh, man.
Are you enjoying your Kriplock Tic Tacs, Dr. Lazarus? Just like Mum used to make.
By Grapthar's hammer, we should move on to the book 4 preview.
We should. Well, before we do, we got to talk about Theoden with Hope and Despair. I mean, there's so much hope and despair with Theoden, starting from his first appearance in The King of the Golden Hall.
Yeah.
Again, he has to exercise free will to make the choices he makes, but he doesn't make those choices without some hope that
that's right,
that they're going to pay off.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we also had some of our less common themes show up here and there, right? We saw the sins of Melkor pop in again as manifested in Saruman. You know, the pride, the self-isolation, all of the things that we saw originally in Melkor, the desire to control and dominate. I can't even remember all of them off the top of my head, but they're all there in terms of Saruman.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we also had some moments of frame narrative, right? Moments with the interlacing and the elevated diction in some of the narrative as well was part of that frame narrative too.
Yeah, I'm remembering that scene like right after Helm's Deep when it describes all the characters and so much, very formally,
Mm-hmm.
So that's book 3.
Yeah, that is book 3. And now by Grabthar's hammer.
Now we shall look ahead to book 4.
Yes.
And some of the themes and the great scenes we're anticipating over the coming season. Now, we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about this.
No, because we're going to be spending the entire season talking about this.
Exactly.
Right.
But just, a reminder to those of you who maybe haven't read the book for a while.
This is just a list of here's some themes and here's some moments that we're going to see these in. Yeah.
Some reminders to whet your appetite for some of the great things that are coming this season that maybe you forgot about if you haven't read the book in a while.
That's right. So Fellowship, right? That's going to be one we see a lot.
We
talked about Frodo and Sam.
We talked about Gollum and the fact that Gollum is sort of the rough patch in the Fellowship, right? Yeah. He's kind of the anti-fellow in that group.
The anti-fellow. I'm picturing, it's the antimatter in the engine bay. We got antimatter containment has failed. We got to, seal the doors.
Right.
Anti-fellowship. Yeah.
He is that little agent of chaos in the Fellowship.
Yes. Yeah, he is truly. Chaos is a good one.
And that's going to be interesting to see it. And of course, Faramir. I mean, the friendship that arises between Faramir and Frodo and Sam.
Yes.
Is pretty powerful. And
it is.
They just meet for like a brief time.
Very brief time.
But Faramir's judgment leads him to make the right decisions.
It's Faramir's judgment and it's Frodo's experience with Boromir. I think really seals it for him.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
His ability to describe Boromir and to speak well of him, even though, let's be honest, Boromir, Frodo had reason to speak poorly of Boromir.
That's right.
I think that really helped Faramir to judge wisely.
And Faramir knew it too. He saw through it. He's like, you're not telling me everything that happened, but
and I'm sure I have a pretty good idea why you're not, because my brother was kind of a jerk sometimes. Yeah.
Right.
It's not quite how he puts it, but yeah.
Right.
And then we sort of get this what I would call a macro level fellowship, right? It's Frodo and Sam constantly referring back to the Shire, and it's the Hobbit's love of the Shire.
Mm-hmm.
And how that in itself is another kind of large-scale fellowship theme.
I think so, because I think they are to each other a link back to their community.
Yes, they are.
And if it was just one of them alone, they wouldn't have that. And I think they're able to share that.
It serves as motivation. We'll see that especially late in the game, how it really serves as motivation for them to be able to continue their journey. What about some other themes?
Well, I mean, no brainer. We're obviously going to see a lot of the Ring at Work. It's going to be at work.
Why do I keep hearing Men at Work in my head whenever you say Ring
Because
at Work?
Every time we say the Ring at Work, we always think of Men at Work. Frodo and Sam are going to the land down under.
Yeah, they will. Where they're going to have a Vegemite sandwich.
Volcanoes blow and, I don't know, orcs plunder. Sure, let's do that. Obviously, the ring is at work on Frodo every moment of every day.
All the time.
It's at work on Gollum.
Mm-hmm.
Not at work on Faramir, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at work on him, but it fails, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't like Tom, where it doesn't have an effect because of Faramir's nature. This is more like Faramir having a certain amount of strength. Exactly. Where he's far more like Aragorn than he is Boromir.
Yeah. And yet, as I recall the story, Faramir doesn't even seem quite as tempted as Aragorn does in that moment at the Prancing Pony. Remember, we talked about that.
But I think
seasons ago.
A lot of it has to do with, and I remember this because it's one of my favorite moments in the whole book. He has that great line about how even if I were to spot this thing by the side of the road and only I could save Minas Tirith by using it, he doesn't yet know what it is. But then he finds out what it is, and he says, essentially, I'm bound by my word. I gave you my word that I wouldn't try to take this thing, so I'm not going to try to take this thing.
That's true. So it's his honor.
Such an honorable person.
That keeps him. Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, that's going to be fun to dive into.
Oh, it is going to be so much fun to dive into. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then we get the ring at work on Sam, too, don't we? Especially at the end of the book.
At the end. Yeah.
Oh, man, that whole moment in the past.
Incredible moment when Sam actually has the ring and he has his moment of temptation.
And pictures himself as that greatest gardener in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And ultimately, it's his love for Frodo that pulls him back.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Let's see what else. We're going to see a lot of fate and free will. Obviously, Frodo has to maintain the will to go on. Sam is going to be a big part of that.
Yeah.
He has a very big part to play in Frodo's quest. Again, we've talked about this before. Tolkien said he saw Sam as the true hero, and we will definitely be talking about that as we move forward.
Oh, we certainly will. Yeah.
But he's not the only one with a part to play.
No. Gollum's got a part to play.
Yeah, very much so.
His part is more fate rather than free will. I don't think the result of it is by his will.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, that's
he had to be there.
That's a bit of a eucatastrophe.
And his mere existence is because of the exercise of free will by Bilbo, by Aragorn and Gandalf after capturing him.
That is true.
Even by Thranduil and his people.
Yeah.
And then, of course, by Frodo and Sam.
For letting him escape. Thranduil and his people.
Exactly. Thanks a lot, Thranduil.
Yeah.
Elves are good at a lot of things. Penal colonies and prisons are not one of them.
No.
How do you lose 13 dwarves?
It's true. We know very little about the Elven King's prisons, but what we know about them is every single prisoner that we know of escaped from his prisons.
That is correct. Yeah. Hope and despair. I think we're going to see a lot of it.
I'm sure there's plenty. I can't think of any examples right now, but I'm sure it's going to be in there.
Sins of Melkor? I don't know. Will we see?
I don't know. We might.
Maybe some in Gollum?
We might. I mean, we've talked about how the Sins of Melkor are kind of like that template for evil in Middle-earth.
Yeah.
And we probably will see some of that in Gollum, especially.
In Gollum, yeah.
We may see some of it start to manifest in Frodo as he goes a little darker.
Possibly. I don't think that's going to apply to, say, Shelob, because as evil as Shelob is, she's a creature, not...
Yeah, she's more of a beast.
Yeah, more of a beast than a sentient thing.
Yeah. And we're not saying she's not sentient, but it's just...
No, she is, but
she's described in very kind of animalistic terms.
Bestial terms, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't really see a lot of the Witch King or a lot of Sauron in this particular part of the book. So, yeah, maybe not as much.
This is not a theme that's on our list that we've been using since the beginning of the book, but I want to add this one to the list because Marilyn gave us that awesome question in our Questions After Nightfall last season, the last one of last season. Remember refuge, the idea of refuge.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was it. I remember that.
Yeah, and I really am looking forward to diving into scenes of refuge, ideas of refuge. We've got things like Henneth Anun.
Exactly what I was thinking right there. Yeah. The quite literal refuge.
A literal refuge, yeah.
Or even Sam, maybe, is kind of a refuge for Frodo.
That's right. We talked about that in that episode last season. That a person can be a refuge. An idea can be a refuge.
Oh, the idea of the Shire is a refuge to both of them, yeah.
Yeah. And comforts of the Shire being a refuge to them, like stewed rabbit and taters,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Kind of these are the homey things that remind them of the Shire, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to diving into that.
That's an interesting one. We definitely need to add refuge to the list of themes.
I think we should.
I wonder what we'll see, though, of course, of a couple of our big themes, the On Fairy Stories themes and the Beowulf themes. I have to admit, I don't think there's going to be a lot of On Fairy Story themes here. We don't get any eucatastrophes, really.
I don't think so.
It's pretty dark stuff. There's not going to be a lot of recovery or escape or consolation.
Right.
Maybe a little recovery in Henneth Anun.
There probably will be some recovery in Henneth Anun. I think we'll see some of that there. Yeah. We'll definitely be seeing lots of Beowulf, though. I mean, we've
lots
got
of Beowulf.
Frodo continuing on doing what he must do.
The circle of light in Frodo's hand as he stands up against the monster is really not. You don't get much more Beowulfian than that.
Right.
Yeah. Boy, that's going to be good stuff.
Well, and there's the whole idea that Frodo thinks that he's not coming back from this trip, right? He thinks he's going to die, but he's doing it anyway. I mean, that's very Beowulfian.
Yeah, it is, no doubt. Well, folks, don't forget that our sources for this season are all up on the library page of our website. From The Lord of the Rings, A Reader's Companion by Wayne Hammond and Christina Scull, to the various volumes of the history of Middle-earth, especially Volume 8, The War of the Ring.
That's right. And there's lots of other sources we'll be using this season. Mm-hmm. Definitely the biography and the letters, edited by Humphrey Carpenter. Of course, there's John Garth's Tolkien and the Great War, which I am sure we're going to be looking at this season. Frodo and Sam simply walking into no man's land.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty heavy in the Passage of the Marshes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And of course, I know you'll be digging into Ring of Words and Flora of Middle-earth for all that word and plant nerdery. Yeah,
absolutely. And with any luck, we'll get a chance to crack open Carl Hostetter's new edition of The Nature of Middle-earth.
Yeah, that'll be great.
And many other books as well.
Oh, of course. So just remember, folks, though, that any book we mention will be listed in the show notes for each episode and will be listed in our library at theprancingponypodcast.com. And as we say every episode, we do get a few pennies from the purchases that you make there, and we thank you for that.
And I've actually got one more source I want to remind people of, which I know everybody has already.
Yeah.
And that's the appendices.
Oh, of course, yeah.
We're going to be taking lots of glances over the hedge to remind ourselves what was happening in Book 3, or actually look ahead to Book 5, because remember, the timeline of Book 4 does cross over both of those.
Does overlap, that's correct.
Yeah. So we're going to say this once, and we're going to say this only once. Spoiler alert.
I doubt we'll say it only once.
Okay, fine.
There's very little that we say only once.
I'm only promising to say it once. How about that?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, with that, I think we're finally ready to start going down into the barren slopes and stones of the Emyn Muil with Frodo and Sam, but that's going to have to wait till next week. So for now, let's look in the mailbag and see what messages Bartleman has brought us. Sean.
All right. Well, we're going to start with a timely question from Ethan in California as we get closer to both Gollum and Mordor. Mm-hmm. Ethan asks, how did Sauron attract Gollum to Mordor? We know Gollum didn't want to go, but in he went. Gandalf says that evil creatures are attracted to Sauron and Mordor. It seems irresistible. But does Sauron summon them for jury duty or questioning or something? Or is there some sort of evil attracts evil magnet? Seriously, he says, is there some means that Sauron uses, or does evil just attract evil in Middle-earth?
Huh.
Well, how do we tackle this one, Alan?
Well, I like the jury duty idea. Like once a year, you have to go, and you get stuck in the bottom of Barad-dûr.
I've got my summons again.
Yeah. You go there, and for the most part, like 9 times out of 10, you just sit in that big room with all the other people with their summons, and then you go home at the end of the day. But every once in a while, you get stuck in a courtroom.
Can you imagine that room, like all the evil things sitting around?
I know, that's exactly what I'm
waiting
like
whether they're going to be called.
A twisted version of Monsters, Inc., with all the different kinds of monsters, but they're actually genuinely evil. Yeah.
Right. There's like trolls sitting there scratching their bellies and just like...
Somebody's over with the work carol, getting their laptop set up. But third arm is like smacking somebody else, A
couple of Easterlings coming by like, we don't even live in this county. I don't know why we're here.
How do we get a jury summons? I don't understand this. I also like the idea that it seemed irresistible because I don't know about you, but all I could hear in my head was simply irresistible. I know. I'm terrible that way. Well,
that's awful.
I know we started with jokes, but I suppose we should start with relevant quotes and build up our case from there. So first, I want to give a hat tip to our research assistant, Tanya Plashkova, who helped us track down many of these quotes. We're going to start with something from the Shadow of the Past. It's hard to believe this, but we would have covered this around episode 101, nearly 3 years ago.
Wow.
It does feel like just the other day.
We've been at this a while, haven't we?
Yeah. So Gandalf at this point is relating Gollum's story after his capture by Aragorn, and we read, "What he had been doing he would not say. He only wept and called us cruel, with many a Gollum in his throat. And when we pressed him, he whined and cringed, and rubbed his long hands, licking his fingers as if they pained him, as if he remembered some old torture. But I'm afraid there is no possible doubt. He had made his slow, sneaking way, step by step, mile by mile, south, down at last to the land of Mordor." A heavy silence fell in the room. Frodo could hear his heart beating. Even outside, everything seemed still. No sound of Sam's shears could now be heard. "Yes, to Mordor," said Gandalf. "Alas, Mordor draws all wicked things, and the Dark Power is bending all its will to gather them there. The ring of the enemy would leave its mark, too. Leave him open to the summons.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's really, that last little line is where we want to focus. Yeah.
Draws all wicked things and open to the summons.
Bending all its will, and then the ring makes it harder for him to resist. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course, this isn't the only time we see Sauron draw evil towards himself.
No.
In Appendix A to The Lord of the Rings, in the section on Durin's folk, we read, "The power of Sauron, servant of Morgoth, was then again growing in the world, though the shadow in the forest that looked towards Moria was not yet known for what it was. All evil things were stirring." And this was right before the dwarves woke the Balrog up from his nap.
Oh, yeah, bad idea. We get another glimpse, though, of this same thing in Otrapada, which is another acronym I should explain, that stands for Of the Rings of Power in the Third Age, which is a single, not chapter, but it's like an epilogue in the Silmarillion. And we read this there. "But ever the shadow in Mirkwood grew deeper, and to Dol Guldur evil things repaired out of all the dark places of the world, and they were united again under one will."
Right. So we see lots of examples of this attractive power.
Yeah.
But what we don't get is a description of the mechanism by which Sauron does this.
No, we don't. You're right.
There's even other passages that describe lesser evil creatures being attracted by greater evil creatures.
Yeah.
So it seems to be something that's inherent to evil, but why and how is that the case?
You know, I think it may go back to this idea of Morgoth's power being part of the very nature of Arda itself. You know, when we read Volume 10 of the History of Middle-earth, Morgoth's Ring, well, we learn exactly what his ring was as opposed to Sauron's ring. It's not a single ring of gold with all of his will condensed into it. It's the whole of Middle-earth.
Right.
And so Arda is not as it was originally made. It's corrupted through and through by the evil of Morgoth, whose powers and influence had become part of the earth. Tolkien called this the Morgoth element. And one can imagine that it would allow a suitably powerfully evil creature like Sauron to draw those lesser but still evil creatures to himself.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think just that corruption that's inherent in matter could allow Sauron to work his will on that. And we know that it is his will that he's doing.
Yes.
Bending all its will, right, to gather them.
He is sending out that summons, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, there's the connection with the ring, you know, the one ring.
Right, not Morgoth's ring, this time Sauron's ring.
The actual ring. Gollum had possessed the One Ring for so long that when you combine that with his evil nature in the first place, it would have been impossible for him to fight the summons. I mean, not that Sauron was summoning Gollum directly, of course.
No. Now paging Mr. S. Meagle. Mr. S. Meagle, please pick up the black courtesy phone. No, it's clearly a general call to all evil.
Yeah.
In fact,
exactly.
It kind of made me think, I mean, the original owners of the Nine, when they were still just regular men, you know, kings and other leaders, they would have been subjected to a similar call. Sauron would have been calling all evil to himself. Right. They would have found that summons equally impossible to resist because of the rings.
Right. So it's not like Sauron's got them all on speed dial and he's calling them one by one. It's just cast a net, evil things come into it.
That's exactly right.
And they get brought back to you.
Worst fish in the world, man. Do not eat at Sauron's fish market. And that net he casts just totally drags stuff off the bottom. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Although if Gollum smells it, he's probably going to get hungry.
Oh, of course he will.
So, all right. Well, that was a great question. Do we have time for another one, Alan?
You know, I think we do. It's an interesting speculative question with no research required. Then, yeah, certainly.
All right.
What do you know? That's exactly what we have.
Just the thing. Yep.
Exactly. Henrik A. in Sweden asks, what do you think would have been the course of action if Frodo didn't make a temporary recovery from his wound in Rivendell? If he either passed away or became otherwise incapable of carrying on the quest, what do you think Gandalf, Elrond, and the other wise people would have decided? Let Samwise carry on? Just take a chance and drop it on Bombadil's doorstep? Try to convince the Eagles to drop Frodo's body in the ring into Mount Doom. I love that one. And then he asks the real hard one, also, what would you have done?
Oh, man.
Oh, I'm going to let you go first on this one, Sean.
Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah. Well, since there's no wrong answer, I'm just going to have fun with this one.
There you go.
All right. So the ring makes it all the way to Rivendell with Frodo. Frodo's not like killed on Weathertop, but Frodo is wounded, mortally wounded on Weathertop. He dies at Rivendell, and then the council has to decide what to do with it.
Right.
I have to imagine that Bilbo would still offer to take it to Mordor.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that happens whether Frodo's there or not. He thought that he started this. He's going to try and finish it.
That's right.
And I think he's going to receive exactly the same response that he received in the
That's
book, which
exactly
is like,
right.
no, you're way too old, Boomer. And by the way, we totally don't trust you with it because we know that you're going to try and take it. That is
pretty much the answer he got. Right.
Yeah. So assuming that happens and then Bilbo is not chosen, I think my favorite idea is that Sam would take the ring. Now,
Wow.
I know it sounds unlikely because we think Sam goes along because Frodo goes, right?
Yeah, that's where I go with this. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of evidence for the fact that Sam goes just because Frodo goes. But
It's a speculative question. You can speculate this. Yes.
I can speculate. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I like the possibility that Sam might actually be inclined to take the ring to honor his late master.
Okay.
Well, Frodo wanted to do this. He couldn't make it, so I'm going to do it for him.
That's fair.
Maybe. It's a possibility,
Yeah,
speculating.
certainly a fair speculation. Yeah.
Now, what happens if he does that? Well, Pippin and Merry aren't going with him.
No.
Sorry, they're cool guys.
Get on,
but-
Sam.
Right. They're great guys, but I don't see them going with Sam. So they're going back to the Shire.
Yeah.
Elrond ends up sending a couple of random elves from his household. Actually, 3 now, because he's got to replace Pippin and Merry and Frodo.
That's right. Right.
And maybe Legolas isn't necessary anymore, so he's probably going back to Mirkwood.
That's true. We have an elvish representation.
Yeah, we've got plenty of elves in this party already.
What we need is elvish representation. Thank you very much.
Why?
All right, sorry,
Why?
go ahead.
So Legolas and Gimli don't become friends.
Oh, man, that's sad.
Legolas never knows Gimli as anything other than the son of that rude dwarf at the council. Like, why did you ever let that guy escape from prison, Dad? To which Dad says, I didn't mean to. It's just my prisons are terrible.
Yeah, they really are.
So that still leaves 1 spot of the 9 walkers if everybody else goes. So, I don't know, maybe Halbarad or some other one of the Rangers.
And by that?
But then let's play that out a little bit. Once the Fellowship gets to Parthgalen, let's assume that Gandalf still falls in Moria.
Okay.
I don't see Sam going on to Mordor alone the way Frodo would have
not
done.
at that point, no.
So he's probably going to go west to Minas Tirith with Aragorn, Boromir, and let's say Halbarad.
You're
is
right.
there.
He's going to make the decision to go to Minas Tirith, yeah.
Right. Probably whoever these red shirt elves are, they're going to go with them too. So like the whole Fellowship basically goes to Minas Tirith.
They might just turn around and go back to Rivendell, though, huh? I mean, what do they have to do with Minas Tirith?
That's true.
They don't care.
They might, yeah. But in any event, as soon as Sam enters Minas Tirith with the ring, Boromir's like, hey, Dad, guess what I brought?
Oh, no. Game over.
Denethor gets the ring, and that is pretty much game over. So
yeah. Oh, that's
I don't
brutal.
think Frodo dying ends well.
No, I don't think it does. I think you're probably right about that. You know, the discussion of the council made it clear that the destruction of the ring was their only solution. So I think Bombadil is out, you know, if we're talking about the options that Henrik has given us.
Sure, yeah.
Recall that it was decided that the ring needed to be taken to Mount Doom before Frodo volunteered to take on the duty. So that's still the mission we're headed on. The question, you got to, is who would have volunteered. Like you said, Bilbo volunteered first, so I think we still would have gotten to that point in the story unchanged, including the sorry boomer response.
Yep.
I think Aragorn would have offered to take the ring to Mount Doom. He'd already faced the temptation, right? And he defeated that temptation. Add to that the fact that he was uniquely suited to long treks in the wilderness. I mean, he'd been out on his errantry for, a decade earlier. Why not?
That's true. Yeah.
And he might have seen this as a way to defeat Sauron instead of him directly returning to Minas Tirith and trying to claim the kingship. He knows he cannot be the king until Sauron is defeated. And though in our version of the story, right, he knows he has to go to Minas Tirith.
Right. But that's only because somebody else is already taking the ring.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. In this case, I think he knows he'd have to do it.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think the rest of the Fellowship might have been different. I honestly can't imagine any of the 3 hobbits going along with him after the death of Frodo. Sam would desperately want to return home. And I think Merry and Pippin just wouldn't have a reason to go along. And they certainly wouldn't have a reason to be.
Yeah.
Elrond wouldn't send them for sure. I think we'd have Elladan and Elro here. Perhaps accompanying Aragorn.
Yeah, they might do that. Yeah.
And then we'd have Gimli, Legolas, Boromir, and Gandalf, and 2 more unnamed elves of Elrond's house, right? 2 more red shirts.
The red shirts.
So, yeah. Well, because we know he's not going to send Glorfindel, right? That was decided again before they
that would be too dangerous. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think they accomplish the quest?
Yeah, I think they do. I think it quite possibly takes Aragorn's life to do it. I don't think he ends up becoming king or marrying Arwen. I think he dies at the cracks of Mount Doom.
So Sauron defeated, but we don't get the restoration that we're looking for Gondor.
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
We're not too far apart on this one. I mean, I still think Sam might have been convinced, and I like that idea, although it doesn't really end well. Well, back to Henrik's other question, which I would rather not even answer. What would I myself have done?
Oh,
I don't know.
I didn't even think about that one.
I probably would just go back home with Merry and Pippin, smoke myself silly on Old Toby, and try to enjoy the last few months of my life as a free hobbit.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I might have stayed in Rivendell because I figure that's probably the last place other than maybe Tom's to be overcome.
Yeah.
Shire's going to last a lot shorter period of time. They're not going to put up much of a
That's
fight.
a good point. That's a good point.
So I'd probably hang out in Rivendell and be like,
why delay the inevitable?
yeah, I'm just going to, fiddle while Rome burns here and just,
Right.
Wait for, I'll just read the books in the library until it's all over.
No, that
That's
sounds
sad.
pretty good too.
Very
That
sad.
is terrible.
Well,
But
folks,
thank you, Henrik.
thank you very much, Henrik. I appreciate that. And folks, that wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But please be sure to join us again next week when we finally, for the first time this season, do a chapter read through.
Yay.
We will be starting with the first few pages of The Taming of Smeagol.
Oh, that's good. You got to tame your Smeagol's. You
Yeah.
really don't want to meet a wild Smeagol on your way to Mordor.
No, they have to have their shots too.
They do. They do. Hopefully they're chipped.
Yes, definitely. So you can stay away from them
That's right.
rather than find them. Yes.
Yeah, find them again. Now, we do want to take a moment to thank the team that helps make this show better. Our research assistant, Tanya Plashkova, our barlowman, Becca Davis, producer Jordan Rennells, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, and website guru Phil Dean.
Now, speaking of the website, please make sure to give us a visit at theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes, hilarious outtakes, Prancing Pony Ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch.
And definitely check out our library page. You know we love the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, and we've provided links for you to get nearly every book we mention on the show. And as we said earlier, we do get a few pennies from the purchases you make there, and we really appreciate it.
Now, we want to thank some more really important people. These are our patrons at the Kierdan's contribution tier. I'm going to start with DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, B in California, Joseph in Texas, and Kathy from North Carolina.
And then we have Lori from Washington, Josh in Oklahoma, Carlos in California, Brian from the UK, Cameron in Nevada, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Ryan from Alaska, Paul from Buckland, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Hal from Washington, D.C., and June in Ireland. Thank you all so very much for your support. And folks, please be sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is.
That's right. And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and, well, most of all, what you would do if Frodo died in Rivendell to Barlaman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want a chance to have your actual voice heard on the show, you can send us audio of you asking your question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Just please make sure to still send the question to Barlaman as well.
Yes, please.
And Barlaman is a lot more reliable lately, but we do get a lot of mail. So we'll get to you as soon as we can, and your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
But as always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time,
Farewell, friends.